we are ready for the future. Now it's time for the world's largest democracy to decide. You are watching a special edition of Political Capital, the economy election, live with Harsha Subramaniam from Mumbai studio and Vivek Law from Delhi studio.
Hello and welcome to this where Delhi meets the Lal Street. It's the day the big guns of election 2014 have been waiting for, be it Narendra Modi in Vadodara or Sonia Gandhi in Raebareli. Add to that Arun Jaitley and Amrinder Singh's big battle in Amritsar, and you have a day that decides the fate of those expected to occupy the most prestigious offices on Raisina Hill next month.
That's right, Vivek. As we get into the final few rounds of this grand 6-week exercise, how is the mood in the country shaping up? What does India want from its next government? Joining us over the course of the next hour will be Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, Biocon, Ganesh Natarajan, Zensar, Jeff Lewis, Deepen Seth, Rajiv Kumar and Chaitanya Kalbag. But before we get to them, Saloni Shukla is standing by with the big numbers of the day.
Well, Harsha, it's a big day, 349 seats already polled. Let's begin by seeing what is in store today. As far as this election is concerned, 7 states and 2 union territories, 89 constituencies at play, nearly 1,300 candidates whose fate will be sealed, and nearly 139 million voters. As far as the single-phase voting is concerned, 2 important states, Gujarat all 26 seats and Punjab all 13 seats at poll today. As far as the next states are concerned, these are battleground states, Bihar 7 seats and Uttar Pradesh 14 seats. Other states, Andhra Pradesh 17 seats, a large part of Telangana on polls today, West Bengal, Jammu and Kashmir, Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman Diu.
Saloni, the big guns of the Congress and the BJP go head-to-head today. The Congress has put up some of its strongest candidates against the BJP's top 3 leaders, Modi, Rajnath and Jaitley, isn't it?
Well, Vivek, 2 Lok Sabha debutants that we're watching out for. Let's begin with Gujarat, where all 26 seats go to poll today. But the biggest seat, of course, to watch out will be Vadodara. This is Narendra Modi's Lok Sabha debut. He is pitted against Madhusudhan Mistry of the Congress. As far as the next state is concerned, 2 important states we're watching out in Punjab. But the biggest face-off, as far as this phase is concerned, is between Arun Jaitley of the BJP and Captain Amrinder Singh of the Congress. Remember, this is also Arun Jaitley's political Lok Sabha debut. As far as the next seat is concerned, it's Bhatinda. This is a fight within the family. Shiromani Akali Dal leader Harsimrat Kaur Badal is pitted against Manpreet Badal of the PPP. Remember, PPP is in an alliance with the Congress in Punjab. As far as the battleground state, Uttar Pradesh is concerned, 3 key seats we are watching out for. But the biggest seat in UP, of course, will be Raebareli. Congress President Sonia Gandhi is pitted against Ajay Agarwal of the BJP and Pravesh Singh of the BSP. As far as next seat is concerned, it's Lucknow. Rajnath Singh of the BJP is pitted against Rita Bahuguna Joshi of the Congress. Third important seat is Murli Manohar Joshi in Kanpur, and Shri Prakash Jaiswal of the Congress are fighting against each other. As far as the next state is concerned, we're watching out in Bihar. It's JDU member Sharad Yadav and Papu Yadav of the RJD fighting against each other. The last seat is from West Bengal. We're watching out for 1 big seat in Shrirampur, where Kalyan Banerjee of the Trinamool Congress is fighting it out with Bappi Lahiri of the BJP.
Alright, outside of these big head-to-head battles, there are a number of key leaders who are also facing the litmus test today. That's right from Telangana, as Saloni was mentioning, all the way up to Uttar Pradesh. Take us through some of those names, Saloni.
Well, Harsha, let's begin with K.C. Rao. He is fighting from Medak. As far as Malkajgiri is concerned, that's the largest constituency. Jaiprakash Narayan of the Lok Satta Party, Asaduddin Owaisi of the Amin, and Jaipal Reddy, sitting Congress Minister Abdul Bari Siddiqui of the RJD, and Shankar Singh Waghela from Gujarat. Staying on with Gujarat, we also have the big name Lal Krishna Advani from Gandhinagar and Paresh Rawal of the BJP. As far as other seats are concerned, Dinsha Patel, Farooq Abdullah from Srinagar, Vinod Khanna from Gurdaspur, Ambika Soni of the Congress from Anandpur Sahib. Last 4 faces, Praneet Kaur from Patiala of the Congress, Jitin Prasad from Dhaurhara in Uttar Pradesh, Uma Bharti from Jhansi, and Chandan Mitra from Hooghly in West Bengal.
All right, so why is this election so pivotal to India's future? Joining me to talk about that are Mazumdar-Shaw of Biocon, Chaitanya Kalbag, former editor of Reuters Asia, former editor-in-chief of the Hindustan Times and former editor of Business Today, and Ganesh Natarajan of Zensa. Thank you very much, all of you, for coming by. Kiran, this is increasingly becoming an economy election, isn't it? Even in the discourse, we've now started seeing attacks on corporates.
Well, certainly, because I think everyone's very, very concerned about the economic decline, where Aam Aadmi has actually faced, unacceptable levels of inflation. So I think it affects everyone, and I think the economy has to be brought back to a very, very, high growth rate. And for this to happen, I think we are going to need the new government to immediately focus on a number of kickers, starting with, focusing on the manufacturing sector, because everyone is really concerned about jobs. And I think we have really neglected and devalued India's manufacturing prowess. I think, the land acquisition bill has added to this. We have seen no labor reforms. And I think overall there has been no proactive policies to really attract investment in this particular manufacturing sector. In fact, on the other hand, it has deterred it. It has repelled investment in manufacturing because of so many challenges. I myself have been a victim of this, where I have actually consciously moved out my manufacturing expansion to Malaysia. There's a power deficit, land acquisition is a big issue, the taxation is not very clear. I think there's a lot to be done. Ease of doing business is very, very challenging in this country, and I think this is something we have to address.
Ganesh Natarajan, coming on this conversation, what of all the issues that Kiran Shaw sort of laid out, what do you think the next government needs to do? What to your mind is the best possible poll outcome from an economy and a corporate India standpoint?
Well, I would think, and as Kiran very rightly said, I think we need to do a lot to boost investor confidence in this country. I mean, over the last few years, I've been speaking at various forums, whether it's the Asia Society or World Economic Forum, the US-India Business Council, and you can see the steady deterioration in the perception of India. And the first thing the new government has to do is to correct that. Now, correcting is one point, but I think 2 points that I think Kiran alluded to, which is completely true, that we need to create a better environment for investment. That includes infrastructure. I mean, in our own industry, the IT industry, we don't need physical infrastructure, but digital infrastructure, social infrastructure, an environment where people are happy and they are free of corruption. I think that's important. And last but not the least, I would think that we certainly need to focus on job creation. I mean, there are 100 million to 150 million jobs to be created in the next 10 years. It's not going to happen if we don't focus on all the sectors. I mean, whether it's tourism, hospitality, healthcare, IT, manufacturing, and all that together with a very strong skills enablement environment is what this country needs. So it is a tough agenda, it is a big agenda, but I'm sure a confident government at the center can make it happen, which is the reason I guess we're all hopeful.
Chaitanya Kalbag, let me come to you. You wrote a recent article where you said Lok Sabha polls 2014, who's afraid of Narendra Modi, ? Do you believe this election is turning into a Narendra Modi versus the rest election?
Absolutely, Vivek. It has become a presidential election, and there's only one candidate, and that's Narendra Modi, who's in the running. We don't really have any major personalities shaping up with an equal amount of, in an equal magnitude against him from any of the other parties. And as the final days of campaigning roll past, we can see that he's been on a roll right for over the past 18 months, and it's very clearly a referendum on whether or not Narendra Modi can lead this country. But I think taking forward what was said earlier, one of the biggest challenges it's been a very divisive and politically charged campaign, but I think what many people don't seem to be talking about is the dire state of our economy and the fact that the new government has very, very little time to get into fixing some of the most pressing problems. And I think the biggest problem, as we heard earlier, is jobs. Jobs, jobs and jobs right down the line.
Depends.
I think there's no question that
Depends on coming on this conversation. The market seems to believe that the India has already formed the government. The kind of euphoria that you're seeing in the markets, saving the last couple of days, is there too much of expectation built in? Is there too much euphoria? And is this, in a sense, leading to overheating of the markets?
So Asha, that's the nature of the beast, and that's how markets react. Markets look forward into the future, and as soon as a trend becomes even partly visible, investors rush in where sensible people occasionally might fear to tread. So yes, we've seen a run-up, and there's some excitement of a revival in the capex cycle, an improvement in the general operating environment for business, and the hopes that corporate India might see a revival of sorts, if not immediately, then at least over a period of time, as this consensus around the NDA coming to power got to crystallize. I would qualify the euphoria here by saying that as we move towards the final outcome date and as we move towards crucial election voting dates such as today, market participants will be keeping an ear close to the ground and trying to get informal feedback on what's really happening in the trenches. So, which is why you are seeing a little bit of a leveling off and a consolidation happening right now around the 6,800 levels. But yes, to my mind, the last 10 or 15% move in the market has been entirely driven by the prospect of a new business-friendly and economy-friendly government coming to power. Certainly.
Hold the thought, gentlemen. In fact, have Priyank standing by to do a quick check on how the markets are opening today. We're just a couple of seconds away from opening. Priyank.
All right, just getting the opening quotes coming in as well, Asha. Right now, let's get a quick check going as far as the benchmark indices are concerned. In terms of stocks, Bharti is going to be one to watch out for. All right, the index is opened higher by roughly around 38, 39 points. So it's pretty much a similar situation where the markets have once again start the day off, or at least in the initial period, on a higher note. But as we've been seeing over the last couple of days, they tend to cool off. 39, 40 points higher, but take a look at Bharti. The numbers, remember, have been a little bit on the disappointing side. Africa operations, once again, just being a little bit on the slower side, but the stock's just taking a little bit of an up move today, 2% higher so far on that counter. We'll wait and see how that counter plays out in the next few minutes as well. Beyond that, HUL once again down 0.4%. BHEL seeing a little bit of a stress, not much trading lower. Metal counters, Tata Steel, Sesa Sterlite and Hindalco are all trading somewhat muted. Now remember, we were talking about that mega announcement coming in from the AP High Court as well. Take a look at Sun Pharma, 2% lower on that counter as there were some question marks being raised regarding the entire transaction regarding Ranbaxy. That stock taking a little bit of a knock, but all in all, the index currently up 38 to 39 points.
Thanks, Priyank, for that. Rajiv Kumar also joins us on this conversation. Rajiv, many people argue that you're seeing some sort of a green shoots of recovery in the economy already. How difficult or challenging is this going to be for the next government that comes into place and for the next finance minister?
Actually, it's going to be very difficult. And I've been at pains to say that one should not get into this mood that this will be a V-shaped recovery and that the green shoots of recovery are already here, and come the new government we will find everything hunky-dory. This will take time. In fact, my last article I had said that the government would do well to bring down the expectations in generally all around, because otherwise everybody is going to get disappointed. And there's a huge amount of hangover from the previous government that they're leaving behind, whether it's in terms of fiscal deficit, which is not going to be which is way above what the numbers are saying, whether it's investors' confidence that we've been talking about, the tax mess and the uncertainty in the tax regime, whether it's the transfer pricing or the retroactive taxation, nothing has been cleared. So I think the new government will take some time to clear the decks and then show its good intent by taking a few steps which it can take as executive action before the recovery or the investment cycle begins to perk up again. So I'm not sure where these green shoots of recovery are visible, except in, of course, Dalal Street and Mint Street, and which as somebody said is the nature of that beast, and that beast gets euphoric, pretty much with hardly any connection to the real economy. I still see another quarter of fair bit of pain before any recovery begins.
Rajiv, this is Vivek Law here. You have also written in a recent article about, in fact, you've taken on the Congress and you've said it seems like a last-ditch attempt by the Congress to denigrate the Gujarat development model. The basic sense, as I get it, in corporate India and markets is that if there were to be a Modi-led government, if nothing else, there will be a push towards getting projects off the block, which has been one of the biggest sore points, the investment cycle, reviving it. Do you think that it's all pretty much boiling down to that simple fact?
Vivek, in my view, it's all boiling down to better, effective, good governance. It is not just the projects of the ground, but decisions which have been pending and which are pending all across the whole range of ministries. This policy paralysis, which is actually for real, because the senior bureaucracy has felt very vulnerable, very threatened, has therefore stopped taking decisions which will compromise, which will put it at risk. And I think the new government, the first thing that it will have to do is to sort of convince the bureaucracy that if they are being honest, if their integrity is impeachable, then the decisions they take, the government will stand by them. And this effect, and what the economy needs, and what the investment climate needs, is some decisive steps in that direction. Now, for example, I have been suggesting that the first thing that the government could do is to announce, that the 70 odd clearances that the business needs to go through will all be done. A lot of them can be self-certified. And if the government does announce something like that, which does not take any legal or any legislative change, there will be a rush of positive sentiment in that direction.
Sure.
But coming back and emphasizing my point, the key to me in Gujarat is effective governance with delegated authority, where discrimination is the least. I think that's what everybody is looking for, and that to me is the essence of what the Gujarat model stands for, and what the new government should be implementing at the center when it comes to power.
Sure. Kiran Shaw, we've heard quite a bit of debate over this Gujarat model versus the rest of India model, and what is best suited for India's economy and so on. But what should that translate into? What could be the 3 or 4 things, the low-hanging fruit for the next government?
Well, Rajiv just mentioned about, changing and sort of creating a paradigm shift from the approval Raj to basically deemed approvals and automatic approvals. We really need clear regulation, rules and regulation, and proper delegation is what we need to really effect good governance. And I tell you what Rajiv just said about the Gujarat model, it is about this. You don't need to sort of wait for inordinate approvals. The rules and regulations are very clear. There's a lot of self-certification. There's a lot of automatic approvals, and everything is time-bound. That's what this country needs. We cannot be wasting time for approvals, which is very expensive. And I think that is something the Modi government does do very well in Gujarat. I have seen some of our own applications being dealt with very swiftly compared to any other state. So I think we need to focus certainly on these mega projects and how we can really kickstart them immediately, because that will boost investment. We need to look at some of these policies that have been ill-conceived and which need to be amended so that it brings back investor confidence. But most of all, we need to focus on simple and clear regulation. That way itself will really address good governance in a big way.
Dipen, you've just come back after spending a few days at Khandwa. What was the sense that you got? I know I've read your report, but just for the information of our viewers as well, you did have a trying time getting into some of those rallies out there. But what were the issues according to you that you felt people are going to be voting on? Local issues or of the more larger issues as we've been talking about jobs, about the economy, about inflation? Were those the issues that you found people talking to you about, or were it more local about basic needs in their own locality?
So in Khandwa, which is pretty much what upcountry or small town India is all about, what you refer to as the local issues are actually the larger issues that confront us as a country. So whether it's inflation, whether it's job creation, whether it's basic infrastructure, hard infrastructure, or whether it's social infrastructure like hospitals, schools and colleges, these are the problems that all of India is grappling with, whether you look at the large cities or whether you look at the small towns, whether you look at the villages. Water supply, electricity, waste disposal, drainage, sewage, these are the things that are completely messed up in so many parts of this country. If you will permit me to generalize, probably across the country, even in the larger cities, which are now bursting at the seams. So I don't think there is any particular thing such as a national issue versus a local or a regional issue. The whole country is probably grappling with the same basic macroeconomic and governance issues, and Khandwa was no different. In fact, it's probably a little worse than what the rest of India is, simply because it doesn't have even the kind of bad infrastructure that so many other people or so many other regions have. I was appalled to see open drainage in a large town such as Khandwa, but you see open drainage in suburbs of Bombay as well. So I think the issues that matter have always been the same. It's just that are the current contestants for Khandwa seat highlighting them adequately or not? And to my mind, they were, all three of them, the principal contestants that I could see, whether it was the ruling Congress MP or whether it was the BJP challenger who's trying to come back after having won the seat 4 or 5 consecutive times, except for the last time, and whether it was the Aam Aadmi Party challenger. So I don't think there is any lack of consensus around what is needed to revive Khandwa or the rest of the country for that matter. It's just that who are you going to trust the most, and I think the jury is still out on that.
Chaitanya Kalbag, is the jury still out on that, or do people already believe that good governance, growth, fixing these problems is perhaps something Narendra Modi is better equipped to do?
Well, as we just heard, I think the most important things that most people are looking for is bijli, pani, sadak, health and education. And I think what they want is delivery, and we've seen an enormous amount of paralysis over the past couple of years, and that's got even worse of course during this long drawn campaign. What people want most of all is quick decisions. What they want is not having to bribe everybody for every small thing that they have to get, and not having to wait on very unfeeling government officials who don't care about where it goes so long as they get their next promotion. So I think governance is what we say in the cities, but at the ground level, I think people really want a life that gets better and not become more and more expensive as the days go by. And I think one of the most important things that I've noticed in this campaign is that there's been so much of political abuse flying back and forth, that the most fundamental issues that people are looking for in terms of security, in terms of job creation, in terms of what all those hundreds of millions of young people who are coming into the workforce every year are going to look for. I mean, we talk about telephones and mobility and so on, but those are elements that are also very important in terms of how those aspirations are going to be met over the next decade. And we're already in 2014, let's not forget that. We have to create about 115 million jobs by 2022, which is a huge challenge.
Right. We're going to take a break on that note. When we come back, we continue this conversation on the special edition of Political Capital. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back to a special edition of Political Capital on the day when voters decide some of India's biggest political leaders to the 16th Lok Sabha. We're joined by Rajiv Kumar, Chaitanya Kalba, Ganesh Rajan, Dipen Seth and Kiran Shaw. Dipen, we were talking about the markets running up quite a bit too much too soon. My question is, what if there is a fractured mandate? Would that mean too much of disappointment? Are we also setting ourselves for a sell-off?
That depends on what you mean by a fractured mandate and how you define this fractured mandate. So if you're fishing for, let's use market terminology and say that the BJP's standalone earnings as it were 200 or a little less. And in which case consol earnings, which means the NDA, would probably fall around 220, 230 maybe. So that would definitely be a troublesome mandate in terms of the consensus expectations in the market, which are clearly around 220 to maybe about 230 or 235 for BJP standalone, and BJP plus, which means NDA, at maybe about 250, 260, which means they get within kissing distance of the 272 mark. Anything above this consensus would obviously be seen as a very strong positive. Anything below this or significantly below this would be seen as what you would probably are referring to as a fractured mandate, and I think we should see a sell-off then. Will it be a concerted sell-off? That's difficult to predict. But remember that this is actually a shallow market, and you've seen almost continuous FII inflows. I'm not trying to take sides here and say whether money will flow out or not, but when FIIs are selling and when they are continuous sellers for 1 or 2 days, there's very little that can hold up the market. So yes, it could get a little murky.
Kiran Shaw, same question to you. What if we don't get a stable, decisive government? What if there is a fractured mandate? Does that delay the process of economic recovery even further?
Well, we simply can't afford to not form a government. I think, at least I am quite optimistic that we will have an NDA coalition, because this country simply can't afford a fractured mandate. It is going to be very serious for the economy, for the country as a whole, if that were to happen. So I remain quite optimistic. I think, an NDA-led government should be able to, take charge after May 16th. And I think they have a lot at stake. Yes, certainly I think they must manage expectations, because like many of the previous panelists said, I think managing these expectations is also going to be a challenge, because there are monumental challenges ahead for any new government. And I think it depends how they prioritize and action some of the low-hanging fruits, because you've got to get the feel-good factor back very, very fast, because right now there is too much of negativity, doom and gloom. You can see that, actually I feel this electoral process should have been shortened, because it's just getting ugly. There's too much of, name calling and mudslinging, and, this is simply not good for the country, because we seem to have lost our civility in this process. And we've got to get back that feel-good factor, because we need harmony back in this country.
Rajiv Kumar, you wrote in a recent article about some of this mudslinging. You wrote about how there were persistent attacks by the Congress party. You mentioned specifically Rahul Gandhi on businessmen, and you made a very important point that it actually falls flat, considering that some of these big business houses were actually long-time supporters of the Congress party. How are you viewing that kind of a discourse? Why do you think the discourse has gotten down to attacks being made on certain businessmen?
This is really signs of huge desperation, and the fact that that Mr. Rahul Gandhi persistently now attacks what he calls Adani, Ambani model of growth, etc., etc., is just going to make that much more difficult for investors to accept anything like, a fragmented outcome. And for me, the nightmare scenario is what I've read this morning, the statement by Mr. Ahmed Patel and yesterday, last night by Mr. Sanjay Jha, the spokespersons of the Congress party, even uttering or wishing for an outcome whereby they will support a third front from outside.